Spielberg. Uh, he'd knock it out of the park. He does everything. He is the most iconic man in all of history. Hitchcock, Tarantino. You throw everybody out there, and the Spielberg bus will roll over them. Mr. Spielberg is of the Jewish persuasion. This is a Jewish story. Tobit is often seen as a Catholic story because it's such a part of the religious training. It's in Catholic Bibles. There's 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide. 70% of them speak English. So that whole language thing goes away. You won't need the subtitles. Subtitles won't be an issue. Yeah, sure, you can do them. That's fine. But the Catholic faith, you'd think they'd still speak Latin. What is it called? Lingua franca. The language of money is English, and 70% of Catholics speak it. So even though this is a Jewish story, Catholic kids, when they go to Sunday school, they are taught the story of Tobit. Tobit is about a lady named Sarah, and she's married 7 times, and 7 times she's widowed. The marriages are never consummated. They don't even make it to the wedding bed. A demon comes and kills her new husbands. And I guess the moral of the story is she doesn't lose faith. She has her ups and downs, but I think Steven Spielberg would like this. And if he were here now, or if I ever get a chance to speak with him, I will just tell him 7 Jewish weddings and 7 demonic murders, period. And I'm sure he'll say, all in one film? Well, let me tell you about that. No, he's Jewish. He has he's been educated. It's not it's not canonized by the Jews. It's not officially recognized, but no race and no nationality knows their history better than Israelis, Jews and Israelis. Russians know their history. Americans are terribly stupid about history. But Steven Spielberg knows the story. He knows, and he's heard, and it's in the back of Jewish lore, a story about a nice Jewish girl from a good Jewish family who is preyed upon by a demon, Asmodeus. And at the same time, her future father-in-law is Tobit. He goes blind. He's 80 and he's blinded, but he still has a family to take care of. And he's so accustomed to being successful and the provider of the family, he has a big problem with his disability. But he remembers some money he socked away when he was young. And I have my adaptation of the Book of Tobit in Amsterdam and London. Sarah, the girl who is preyed upon by the demon, lives in London, and Tobit sends his son from Amsterdam to London to get the money. Sarah prays for an angel to come rescue her from this demon, and Tobit prays for a guide or companion who will take his son to London and come back with the money. They didn't wire money back then, not like we do today. And so, can you imagine going to London all by yourself, finding the bank, withdrawing the money, and bringing it back to Amsterdam by yourself? So he needs protection from someone who might rob him. And understand, this money is their future, because Tobit has lost his ability to provide with his because of his blindness. So it's a way to take care of his family. Tobit prays. God sends Raphael. I don't mind telling you, Raphael is going to defeat this demon, Asmodeus. There's going to be a big fight in the street. It's London, not far from the Thames. Raphael kills the demon, wraps him up like in rope, like a ball of yarn, and rolls him into the Thames, and the demon sinks to the bottom. I send the script to anybody that asks. And I said on another interview on a different streaming platform, read the Bible and then email me. I'll send you the script. And the guy wanted to talk to me about it on Zoom. He was really worried. I'm sure he was a pious man and looking out for me. And he said, "What are you doing sending this script to everybody? Anybody that emails you?" And I said, "Yeah, so what?" He said, "They'll steal it." And I said, "Look, dude, the story is 3,000 years old. It's in 1.5 billion people's religious trainings. It's in that same number of Bibles. It's out there. My adaptation isn't really different from the Bible. It's about 8 pages in most Bibles, and all I did was go from each verse and build a scene based on each verse. So it's 98 pages, and it'll make a film an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes, and it's the only feature film. It will be the only feature film based on the Book of Tobit. It's not in Protestant Bibles, but there's still 1.5 billion people that are familiar with it. Little kids. They go to Sunday school, and in my experience, the nuns leave out the part about the unconsummated marriage, the empty wedding bed. But little kids know what weddings are. Little kids are taught, or they ask a few questions, and they pretty quickly they learn what a widow is, a woman whose husband's died. And the fact that a demon does all this damage, it sticks. They're exposed to this story when they're 8 or 9 years old, and it's a huge potential audience. Not the little kids. It's not a kids. It's a family story. Somebody asked me about Disney, and I asked somebody at Disney what they thought, and he said, "Well, Disney's not going to touch it because it's religious." And a Russian guy, producer, said, "Oh, it's too controversial. We can't touch that." I said, "Well, I'm American, and in America, controversy just means money. Few protesters outside. I don't think today there will be that many Protestant protesters. I think in the 1920s you'd have a slew. That's why it's not been made into a film. It was a silent film 100 years ago. But there's 1.5 billion people who know the story from print. I mean, they can read it. They have read it. But they've never seen it. Now, I think that is the reason why Mr. Spielberg will make this film, is because there's an expectation. I know you've heard the expectation of privacy is basically a legal doctrine that determines whether the Fourth Amendment applies. If you have an expectation of privacy, the government can't come in without probable cause or warrant. Well, what about filmmakers? What if there is an expectation a movie should be made? There's no film with 1.5 billion potential audience that hasn't been made, except for Tobit. Tobit's the greatest story that's never been seen. Oh, they've read it. It's been the subject of hundreds of thousands, millions of sermons in a religious context. But Jews, Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and these days Protestants, the Lutherans and the Catholics are next door neighbors. They have really honestly decided to put all their differences aside, because their differences are slight today compared to the huge religious spectrum. Islam. Both Catholicism and Lutheranism see Islam as a major threat. So nobody wants to go into this huge theological battle. And I'm not talking about crusades or anything like that. I'm talking about intellectual debate, winning hearts and minds, persuading people to be Christian rather than Islamic. So there's very little you can make this film and not a single Protestant will protest, because Sarah is a pious Jewish woman and Tobit is a pious, charitable, wise 80-year-old Jew. Yes, the story is 3,000 years old, but I set it in Amsterdam 70 years ago in the 30s. Because of the Holocaust. All the characters are Jewish, and Tobit is 80. And the reason for the film and reason for all this, the action, is because he's going to die. We don't live forever. It says in the Bible he dies. It doesn't say how, when, or where, or what it does say the circumstances. But I thought for modern dramatic effect, literary license if you want, I set it in the 1930s. The Nazi Germans are going to show up in 1941, and the man's 80 years old. So the question in the whole movie from the very first frame will be, well, where will Tobit die? Will it be peacefully in his bed in Amsterdam, or will he be carted off for a horrible, humiliating death in the gas chambers? Will he die in the Holocaust, or will he die peacefully? Period. And we won't know till the very end. So that's hanging over Tobit's head. In the Bible, in the Book of Tobit, the Jews in the Book of Tobit are afraid of not being buried. So Tobit's wife are worried about having kids and grandkids and family enough to support their burial. And 3,000 years from later, it's probably not so much an issue. But what's an issue, and this is kind of a stereotype in the Jewish community, the grandmother wants grandkids. And you know, I did the research on the demographics, people that would show up and be a good audience. There are only 25 million Jews worldwide. It is a closed religion. It's very hard to join. You pretty much have to be an ethnic Jew. In other words, they're not out recruiting and they're not training a lot of people in Hebrew or in Judaism. So you got to have grandkids. And some of it is Zionism. They want Israel to be strong, and without grandkids, they're going to get overrun. So Tobit wants grandkids. His wife wants grandkids. Sarah wants kids. That's universal. That's not necessarily Jewish. She's been married 7 times. She's due a few kids. So, yeah, I don't want to ruin the entire story. I would encourage you to read the Book of Tobit and tell me if it'll make a movie. I think Spielberg would jump on it because of the faith parts, the theme of Tobit. Well, I believe I said this a second ago. If I saw Spielberg, I just got to say a few words. 7 Jewish weddings and 7 demonic murders. If that doesn't do it, I give up. No, don't ever discount Spielberg. They have a moat of celebrity around him, and he pays people to keep crazy people away from him. I don't think I'm one of those. This script comes from the Bible. It's an adaptation. Jews believe in the Old Testament. It's not so much a Catholic story. Catholics will be in the audience, but on screen they're all Jewish. And the Spielberg is not any more likely to make a Jewish film than a Christian film. I think he's about art. And can't you define art as fulfilling people's expectations? A lot of people expect to be able to buy a ticket to this film in their lifetime. They don't want to wait another 100 years. And with all the content that Hollywood and technology and progress has made, and we still haven't made this film, it just seems like a no-brainer. I hope Mr. Spielberg agrees with you. Yeah. I never give up hope. Never, never, never. I send 100 query letters and then I move on to the next project, but if you know somebody in Spielberg's camp on his team, you drop a hint. He has a broad range of films he's made. Horse movies, extraterrestrial movies, Jewish movies. He might want to direct it or produce it. Financially, I'm sure you're getting tired. 1.5 billion movie tickets. And I'm sure every pitch contains, really optimistic projections, but most film pitches aren't based on biblical teachings or wisdom teachings or religious training. Not on this scale. No, this is the biggest. And Spielberg makes big movies. It could potentially be huge, the largest ever. Sure, yeah. Do the math.